There we go. All right, welcome everybody. We're here at the Shark Lab. Oops, I think it just went live. All right, welcome everybody. We're here at the Shark Lab once again for our Sharks for Kids Google Hangout. And my name is Jillian. I'm the founder of Sharks for Kids, and I'm really excited to have everyone here today. We have quite a big group joining us, and hopefully lots of you watching as well. So today, I'm just going to introduce you to our team here, or part of them. One of them went out the door. So we're just going to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to introduce you to our special guest. We'll say hello to all the classrooms joining us on camera, and then we're going to take you through some really, really cool shark science. So we're really glad you're here today, and I'm going to go ahead and let these guys introduce themselves.
Hey guys, my name's Anthony. I'm our outreach coordinator out here at the Shark Lab. So I'm in charge of all of our public opportunities, which includes our daily tours. So if you guys ever come to Bimini, you can come visit the Shark Lab, and we'll show you around a little bit. As well as I get to work with a lot of the schools up on the North Island and go up and talk to them about why not only sharks, but all of our marine ecosystems are so important. And of course, I get to hang out with you guys and Jillian for Sharks for Kids. It's always fun. And we're happy to have you guys. It's going to be a fun hour or so.
Hi, my name's Shannon, and I'm one of the volunteers with the Shark Lab. So I'm here for about 5 months, and I'm super excited to be in Sharks for Kids.
Cool. All right, so we also have Matt joining us, but I'm going to let him, once he jumps in to talk about shark tags, actually introduce himself to you. So, you want to come sit ahead? All right, we're going to actually let Matt introduce himself. You can just...
Hi, how's it going? My name is Matt. I'm one of the PhD students here at the lab, and we're using a couple different kinds of tags to track and study shark movements around the island and then where they go once they leave Bimini, so I'll be able to talk a little bit about that and why we're using them and the different techniques and things like that.
All right, so we also have a special guest today that we want to introduce you to. Right over. All right, so we have a nurse shark, right? So we're going to be working with this shark, and today we're actually going to show you what a workup looks like. So scientists all over the world, when they collect sharks, they go out and catch and tag them. We want to talk about what does that mean? Why are they doing it? What are they doing? What are the techniques, the tools? And why is this so important? And the Shark Lab, which is located on the South Island of Bimini in the Bahamas, has been here since 1990. Doing some incredible research to better understand these animals because they're threatened. Many species are threatened with extinction, so learning about them is incredibly important for all of us to be able to help protect and conserve these animals. So we're taking you through what scientists all over the world, despite whatever species they're working with, collect specific information about that animal, and so that's what the process is. But we're also going to talk to you a little bit about this specific shark, because you might have noticed nurse sharks look a little bit different than maybe some of the other species you're familiar with. So we're going to talk about some of the characteristics and the anatomy of this particular shark and why it helps it survive in the particular habitats it hangs out in this time in. So if you guys want to go ahead and do some anatomy.
Other side. No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about is what really sets sharks apart. Oh, cow on my face. And what really sets this particular species of shark apart. Now, for scientists, it's always important to be able to tell the difference between our different species, because they all have different lives, they live in different areas, so the way we work with them and manage them really depends on the species and where they live and how they live. But first things first, we're going to pull this guy out of the water. I'm just going to show you guys him one more time. Now again, this is what we call a nurse shark, and what really sets our nurse sharks apart is really just the way they look. So the first thing we always think of are things like great white sharks and how they just have a torpedo-shaped body. But what you guys will notice about our nurse shark here is he's very, very flat, okay? So they already have a very different body shape to things we're more familiar with, okay? Now, the next thing we'll look at that really sets sharks apart is on the sides of the head. So, Shane, if you want to get them a little bit closer, you guys will notice these little slits right here, and those are the gill slits. And, of course, that's what separates sharks from even just normal fish. Okay, normal fish have a big old plate that covers over their gills. So sharks having gill slits really actually helps them breathe a little bit better as they move. It also keeps them very hydrodynamic. The next thing we'll look at, especially on our nurse shark that makes them so unique, are these two little whiskers right up front. So you want to put it head on. There you go. You guys see those? Those are called barbels. And what they are specialized feelers, okay, that help this shark find its food. And they're so important to our nurse shark because what our nurse sharks like to do is they just like to sit and wait. So if they can sit there and wait for some water or fish to get a little too close, or maybe even things they like crabs or shrimp to get a little close and tickle those barbels, these guys will snap right at them and actually suck them right into their mouth. The next thing we'll look at this guy are his eyes. Now, nurse shark eyes are very, very unique. All right. Now, what makes them so unique is they have eyes that are more for low light situations. Where these guys like to live are on the bottom of the ocean or under rock ledges and coral heads. So they have eyes that let them have very, very little light, but they're still able to see the things underneath. Okay. Next, we'll look at their fins. So sharks have all different types of fins, right? They have their caudal fin, which is back here. You guys can see that. That helps propel them in the water. They have their pectoral fins and their dorsal fins up top here that help keep them from doing barrel rolls. But even their pectoral fins up front, pectoral fins on nurse sharks and really some of our other species help them go up and down in the water, because what they'll do is they're swimming with their caudal fin. They'll either turn them down like this and go deeper, or they'll turn them up a little bit and they'll go a little bit higher in the water column. And that really just helps them go up and down in the water. Other things like fish actually have a special bladder that they'll fill up with gas in their body that helps them rise up and down in the water. Our sharks don't have that, so their fins are very, very good at helping them do that. All right, now the next thing we're going to look at is actually on the underside. So Shannon, one of the ways we tell the difference between our boys and girl sharks is by looking down at their pelvic fins, okay? So these are the pelvic fins because they're right around the middle of the body, which kind of be the same thing as our hips. But right between these two pelvic fins, you guys will notice these little appendages. Let's get a little bit closer. Now those are called claspers, and that's what helps us tell us if it's a boy shark. If claspers weren't there and it was just the fins, we'd know it's a female shark. Okay? So sharks have all these different things about their body that really separate them. Like I said, our nurse sharks are a lot flat. Another thing you'll notice, Shane, if you want to lift them out one more time, is these dorsal fins are really far back on their body. Now,
I think we're in, honey.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Can we go ahead and get you to go ahead and click mute on your mic? So otherwise, whenever you guys talk, you're going to show up as the primary screen.
Who's the mute?
Welcome.
Oh,
Right?
isn't that mute? No, that's
Y'all hear me?
So this is the upper classes.
There we go. Perfect. Thanks, guys. So we're just talking a little bit about the shark anatomy, and if your class can see just yet, we're gonna hold up our sharks. Oh, we lost her. Anyways, we'll hold them up one more time. Guys, so one of the really very cool things that sets our sharks apart. So like we said, other fish have big plates that cover them. They have these gill slits. But what really makes sharks the coolest thing in the world, and we're going to try and get as close as we can, Shannon, we're going to show them the mouth. Okay, if you want to turn it up a little bit. If you guys can see, it's a little hard to see, but just around their mouth and on the tip of their nose, they have what we call the ampullae of Lorenzini. They're just these specialized little organs and cells that are able to pick up electric currents in the water. Now, some of you guys might think, well, why do they have to pick up electric currents in the water? And one of the most important things, and because of where it is on their body, by their mouth, it helps them find their food. The best and probably the coolest example of this is our great hammerheads. All right, everybody I'm sure is familiar with the shape of their head. You know, they have the two what we call the cephalofoil, and these cells line that entire front edge. Here we get you guys to mute your mic. There. Yeah, mute your mic. I'm just talking. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, guys. So back to the hammerhead and these cells. So these cells line that front edge, and they're looking for muscle movements because muscles are controlled by our brain, which runs on electricity. But certain species, like stingrays, like to sit absolutely still, so they don't move any muscles. But there is one muscle, a very special muscle that never stops, and that's the heartbeat in the stingrays that keeps going. So things like great hammerheads are able to feel and look for stingray heartbeats using those cells. Even if the stingrays are covered over in sand, great hammerheads can still find them. So our sharks find absolutely every way to make themselves some of the top predators out there. That's about it on anatomy, guys. We're going to do class introductions now.
Cool. All right. So we just want to introduce everybody. I think we've got everybody here now. So we're just going to introduce. When we say your class, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and just wave and say hi and shout so we can introduce everybody. All right. First up, we have Mrs. Lynn's grade 3 students in Alberta, Canada. Can you guys go ahead and say hi? Thanks for joining us. Then we have Mrs. Rosenstein's grade 3 students are in New York. Can you guys say hi? Great. Then we have Mrs. Griffentag's grade 3 joining us from Willow Lane Elementary in Minnesota. Hi. All right, and we have Mrs. Smuckle's grade 5 and 6 students in Florida. All right. Oh, there we go. All right.
Hey, guys.
Hi. And then finally we have Mr. Uretsky's grade 4 students at Granville High School in Edmonton, Alberta.
Say hi.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This little nurse shark that we whoops, if you guys want to go ahead and mute your microphones again, thank you. So the little nurse shark we have is actually kept in the semi-captive pens that the lab has. If you think of, you've seen cows or pigs on field and fence, the lab has essentially the same thing, but it's in the ocean. And juvenile nurse sharks and lemon sharks are kept there for a brief amount of time for volunteers to learn about them, how to safely handle them, and also for public outreach, so people can come visit the lab, take a tour, and learn about these animals. So this is one of the sharks from the pen, and after it's been in there for about 30 days or less, it'll be released in the exact spot that it was caught, and a new group will be brought in. So these are a great resource for people traveling here or students just like yourselves to actually learn a lot about these animals. So now Matt's going to talk to us a bit about some of the tags that are used here at the lab and some of the work that he is doing to better understand the specific species found here in Bimini and throughout the Bahamas.
Okay, so for my research, and then one of the other PhD students here at the lab, we're using a lot of tracking methods to try to determine where certain species are going, how long they're staying around Bimini, just movement, and then figure out what that has to do with their conservation, trying to figure out the best habitat that needs to be conserved from them. The Bahamas is a huge shark sanctuary, so no sharks can be caught or killed in the Bahamas. But once sharks leave Bahamas waters, then they might be able to be caught by commercial and recreational fishing. So we want to understand how often they're leaving this area, and then how often they're coming back, and that gives us a better idea of how long during their lifetime they're protected, and then trying to figure out other areas that need to be high conservation initiatives. So we have several different types of tags that we're using. The first one that all of our sharks get is called a pit tag. This is about the size of a grain of rice. We'll see if everyone can see that. So it's very small. It's right there. You can see it next to my finger. And what this actually does is it gives us a long 10-digit number for each shark. So this is pretty similar to what you might have in your dogs or cats, where the vet will put it in right between the shoulders of your dog and cat, and then every time that they go to the vet, they can scan it, or if your dog gets lost, the collar, vet can scan it, and then that'll let them know who owns that dog. So it's very similar with the sharks. We use these on all of them, and it's an internal one that goes just near the dorsal fin. It's great because they can't actually rub this off on anything, and it's internal, and it's going to last them for their whole lifetime. So anytime we recapture a shark, the first thing we do is we scan it with a pit tag reader. That's one of these, and we just scan the shark near the dorsal fin, and anytime they have one, it'll pop up, and it'll say either the wrong digit, and we know which shark that is, or it'll say no ID found, which means that's a new shark for us to catch. Those are really great for researchers, but obviously if you're just out doing commercial fishing or recreational fishing, you're probably not going to know to have a pit tag reader with you, and you're not going to know that that shark's been tagged. So for those ones, we have what's called so for those, we have an external tag, and this is called a National Marine Fisheries tag. And so it's about this big, and it has a small dart on the end of it that actually sits under the shark's skin, and then it'll trail off the back. So this one will actually go on the shark like this, and it'll trail off, and it's an external tag, so you can see it very easily. And anyone that catches that shark, it's very obvious that it has a tag on them. So with these tags, it's great for people that might not be researchers. It's a very easy thing to look for, and it has a 6-digit number in it. And then if anyone's catching sharks, you can cut this off and return it to the National Marine Fisheries Service and let them know exactly where they caught that shark. And then National Marine Fisheries Service will let us know, and we can get growth estimates and then movement data. So one of our tiger sharks that we caught, for instance, was tagged near Bimini, and then it was caught in a commercial fishery nearly 2,000 miles away. And the only way we knew that was from one of these external tags that the fisherman turned in. Another tag that we have is called an acoustic tag, and these are our biggest ones. And these have a coded signal that it puts out roughly every 2 minutes. And so this is an internal tag that will actually turn the shark upside down, and it goes into a state that's called tonic, where it's kind of sleeping. You can think of it as like kind of an anesthesia when it goes into surgery. So they're very relaxed when they go upside down, and we'll do a surgery to put this internal in them. And these tags will last for 10 years. So for some of our research, we're tagging baby tiger sharks, and we'll be able to follow them all the way from their couple months old up to when they're 10 years old and being able to reproduce. We also have these being tagged in some of our hammerheads, bull sharks, blackfin sharks, nurse sharks, and then you can get a really good idea of how all the different shark species are interacting. And what this does is anytime the shark is within roughly 500 yards of a receiver around Bimini, there's these underwater acoustic receivers, and so anytime the shark passes by one of those, it sends out a ping, and then when we download the data later on, we know that that shark was there. And we have 50 of these receivers around Bimini right now, so it has a huge coverage area, and we can see what habitat they're using around the island, how often they're around, when they might leave. Certain things like the hammerheads leave when the water warms up, so it's great to know that they're not around Bimini, and then that leads us to want to further understand where they're going when they're gone. Also along the entire east coast of the United States and all the way up to Canada, there's a whole bunch of different researchers that have similar acoustic arrays set up. So anytime one of our sharks goes near their array, they let us know. So when they download the data, they find our basic serial number on there, and they'll contact us and say, your shark was in this area around this time. We can set up these huge movement networks. So for instance, some of the hammerheads have been detected in Bimini, and they've gone all the way up to Virginia and North Carolina. So it's really important data to know. When they go over there, they're not protected the entire time. Then we get an idea of the sharks that are leaving Bimini, are leaving protection of Bimini, and then go into areas that they might be susceptible to harvest. And the last one we have is what's called an accelerometer tag. And this basically can be put on the dorsal fin of the shark, and it will give us movement data of how quickly they're moving in different directions. So it'll tell you basically how far forward they're moving, side to side movement, and you can get an idea of things like if they're hunting, if they're sleeping, what they're doing during different times of the day. I think that should be it for the tags.
All right. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take you through a workup. So if the lab goes out to catch sharks, either for math project or various projects, there's a data collection process that happens to learn a bit more about this shark, so that kind of have some baseline, so starting information that may help us figure out the age, or we can look at growth rates or movement as well. Also to know the sex of the shark, is it a male or a female? And any injuries or conditions on the shark that we might want to notice and observe. Do you want to be a further?
Yeah. Is there any way we can take the computer up? We can look at All right. So as Julian said, we go through a lot of different things to make sure all the information came from our sharks. Now, one of the first things we do that I'll lift up and show you guys is we want to know just exactly how big our sharks are, so we know whether we're dealing with an adult or a little juvenile. So what we'll use is some sort of tape measure. Now, this one is special for our juvenile sharks. Obviously, we can't stick our 5, 6, 7 foot, even 10-foot sharks inside this little trough. But our little guys will fit in there just perfectly. So what we'll do is we'll stick our juveniles, make sure his nose is all the way up at the end here, and then we'll make sure he's a nice and straight shark, and we'll look down the tape measure, and we'll do a couple different measurements. The first one is what we call pre-caudal, and that just goes right before his last caudal fin right here. So that is going to be right at about 45 centimeters. On our other sharks, not necessarily nurse sharks, they have a little fork in their tail, so they have a little piece of fin that comes down off just like my finger. So we'll go to that, we'll call that our fork length. Now on our nurse sharks, we don't take that because they don't have it, so we'll just do a total all the way down, and he's about 63.5 centimeters. So that's a good size juvenile nurse shark.
And if you guys notice, on other sharks you do have that bottom part of the fin. This little shark doesn't have it. They're a benthic shark. They spend a lot of time on the bottom. So if that lower lobe is there on the caudal fin, it would get in the way a lot. So this shark is really designed for feeding and resting and being on the bottom, including the lack of that lower lobe on its tail fin.
All right. So one of the next things we'll do is, because we've been out here on Bimini for so long, we've been working for I'm spacing right now, about 25 years, we've tagged a lot of sharks. Now, one of the things we don't want to happen is tag the same sharks over and over and over and over again. So like Matt was saying with our pit tag, we'll use this scanner to scan over and make sure we haven't caught them before. All right, so we're going to do that now. Turns on, there we go. Oh, perfect. So this is a shark we've worked with before. You guys can see that number right there. That came directly below his dorsal fin. So we've seen this shark before, we've tagged it before, and it's always good to see that a lot of the sharks we tag are still alive, and, or they're still in the area and haven't moved anywhere else. So if we didn't have a tag in it, we'd take that pit tag that Matt showed you earlier, and we put it just right in the dorsal fin. Now, one of the things we do also take is their DNA. That also helps identify who this is, and then we can start seeing, especially with our adult sharks, maybe who the parents are of our juveniles that we see. We see both adults and the little guys. Or we can see who's related, and just really how many different sharks we can have around Bimini just by taking a small little triangle clip that's already been taken on this guy. So you guys see that little triangle right here. So what we do is we just take our scissors, we make a small, tiny little cut, and pull out that little piece of fin. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't affect the shark. They do perfectly fine. And of course, once we have it, we have some really, really good information. Now, one of the other things we'll take using our scissors is another small little piece off the bottom there. So just right down here, we'll take a small little snip, and then what that will tell us is what they've been eating. Maybe not to, this guy only likes conch, but he said, well, he's feeding on the seagrass or on a coral reef. So it really helps us just to understand where these guys are spending a lot of their time and maybe what types of things they like to eat.
It's essentially the favorite restaurant for the shark.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
is he spending your time? Is this shark predominantly spending time in seagrass beds, munching there? Is he going into the mangroves to eat? Or is he actually coming into the coral reefs? And at different stages of the nurse shark's life, it's going to utilize different habitats. It's going to be in different areas as it grows up, and depending on the size of the food that it's eating.
Now, some of the other things we'll do, depending on the species, especially with Matt's tiger sharks, is we'll take something called the girth. So we'll take one of our soft measuring tapes here, and we'll actually essentially get their pant size. So we'll just go, maybe not their pant size, but how wide their shoulders or armpits are, how big of a chest they have. We'll go right under their dorsal, under their pectoral fins, and we'll pinch it off, and we'll say, this guy has a girth at about 22 centimeters. Now, why that's important to us, because it tells us, it can help us tell how healthy these guys are. Based on how long they are and how wide they are, maybe they're eating a good amount, which means it's good for our sharks because it helps them grow. And as Matt said, we'll put in some of our bigger tags, so our KC tags, and of course not on our little guys, but on our bigger sharks. And that's, one of the other important things we do that helps us look at how healthy our sharks will be is we'll take their weight. So we have this big old sling that's attached to a scale. You mind helping me? If you want to hold it. And what we'll do is we'll see how much it is first, and we'll put our little guy in, let him sit, and pull it up a little bit more. So he's at about 1.75 kilograms, and my scale started at about 0.7. So he's about 1 kilogram, which is a good sized little shark. He's doing pretty well, it looks like. So that's really kind of all we do. And of course, depending on the species, we might get some more different information. We might draw blood on a couple of them. That also helps us see where their favorite restaurant might be. And maybe the cool thing is between using their fin and their blood, we can see maybe what their favorite restaurant has been over the year. But with their blood, we can see what it was last week. So it's really just a very different things we can learn from these guys with the different stuff we take. So it's all very, very important to us.
And all of the information that scientists collect all over the world about sharks is to better understand them. For any animal, in order to protect it, like Matt mentioned, the sharks are protected here in the Bahamas, but they don't spend their entire life. Not all of them spend their entire life here. So when they leave, they're in areas that they're no longer protected. So finding out where they go, where do they spend their time, why are they going there? Are they going to breed? Are they going to give birth? Are they following an important resource? So knowing this information is really important for being able to put better laws in place, maybe establish more shark sanctuaries, and really to act in a way of putting better protection for animals. I mentioned earlier, many species, about 1/4 of all sharks raised in states are actually threatened with extinction, and sharks are being killed at a rate of about 100 million every single year. That is a huge number. It's about twice as fast as the population can recover from. So the more science, the more data, the more information that can be gathered about these animals, the better their chances are of surviving and keeping them going. While this work is incredibly important, and you guys can check out the Shark Lab's website to keep up to date with more information about the specific projects and the tagging that's going on, and kind of see what they're learning and why it is so important. All right, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to rotate from class to class, and we're going to do questions. So when we call your class, if you want to we'll do 3 questions, and then we'll move to the next class. So if you ask your question, and then mute your microphone again so that we can answer, so it's kind of going back and forth, mute and unmute. That way we can hear you, and then everyone can hear our answer. So I'm going to just grab
You want this?
That's great.
And everyone can get, all you guys can answer whenever you'd like.
Yeah, we can just take turns here. All right, so let's go ahead and start with Mrs. Grippentog's class. Do you guys want to go ahead and start us with a question?
Madison? Say it real loud, Madison.
We read about glowing sharks. Do you know like anything about glowing sharks?
So a lot of species of sharks that live in very deep water have some special adaptations, some things that they've developed to help them survive in a particular habitat. Very deep parts of the ocean are very dark. So some of them have these photospores on their bellies, giving them essentially a glow-in-the-dark belly. And this will end up attracting little fish and little bits of food to come in closer, making it easier for the shark to actually get its meal. Probably the most recent species discovered was the ninja lantern shark, which came out in December, which is an awesome name for a shark. And they're all black, but they have these little light cells on their belly, kind of like a little disco ball on the stomach, which again is an adaptation to help these animals survive in very deep parts of the ocean.
Good question.
You guys have another one?
Has anyone there ever been bitten by a shark?
Can you say that one more time, a little bit louder, please?
Has anyone there ever been bitten by a shark?
He's wondering if anybody there has been bitten by a shark.
I've been bitten on my finger by a baby lemon shark. Most people at the lab, if they have been bitten, it's from the baby sharks because we handle a lot of them, but never by a very big shark.
See, we've all got
Yep, we all have our fingers left.
and we've all spent a lot of time with these animals, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours, and handling them, diving with them, and it's really about respecting the animal, giving them their space, and understanding ways to handle them safely to keep ourselves safe and also keep the animal safe. Because if you could feel this little nurse shark, its belly is really soft, its organs are right there. So if you squeeze it too hard, you wouldn't want to squeeze a little kitten or a puppy, right? It's going to squeal. So the same thing. You want to be very cautious, very careful when handling these animals. So everyone that works here, all the volunteers, learn how to safely do that. And a big part of it is not only to keep themselves safe, but also to keep the animals safe and as comfortable as possible when the work is being done. Great question. We'll do one more from your class, and then we'll go to the next class.
When do baby sharks leave their parents?
That's a really good question. So, the really unique thing about sharks is the parents really don't stick around to give care to their babies. So the most care they give is how much they eat before letting their babies out in the world. And of course, that's how they help feed them while they're still in the mom. But once they're out of the mom, they're on their own. Because one of the important things is mom is going to be very, very hungry because she's been feeding up to 12 babies at one time. So she's going to be very hungry, and she can't tell the difference between all her babies. So she has her babies, especially like here in Bimini, the mama lemon sharks will come in at high tide, have their babies right next to the mangroves. Their babies will go into the mangroves, and then mom gets out. For one important reason is she doesn't want to eat her babies, and two, she doesn't want to get stuck in a very shallow area. So other shark species will also just have eggs. They'll lay eggs, and mom will go off continuing her own stuff. So the sharks really have no need to provide any care to their babies. Very different than us.
Great question. All right, let's go to Miss Flynn's class. Do you have 3 questions for us? And you guys can go ahead and unmute it.
Do all sharks have a never-ending supply of teeth?
As long as the shark is alive, they are new teeth. So the teeth are incredibly important for animals. Kind of tearing it up. And instead of like humans, we lose our baby teeth, we get our adult teeth, and then we want to take care of them. You don't have to worry about that because as long as they are alive, they're so something like a lemon from babies all the way adults, 25 to 30 years, you have about 30 be endless fun. Great question.
All right. Does Kiana, do you have a question? Nope. Carter, do you have a question? Okay.
Is a shark's skin rough?
Yeah, most of the shark skins feels like sandpaper. So especially when we're handling really big sharks, we're kind of getting what we call shark burn. So you can think of, but most of it is if it goes one direction, it's relatively smooth. And if it kind of goes the other direction on it, and it's pretty rough. And the reason for that, it makes them very hydrodynamic going through the water. Your sharks and things like that. I'm trying to hug them to get the girth measurement. A lot of times we'll end up with kind of like a scrape on our arm. With kind of sandpaper.
So like sandpaper. Cool. Oh, that's what they were saying.
I had one.
Okay, I gotta give blue members another. Emma, yeah.
What is the biggest shark?
In the world?
Yes, in the world.
Yeah, so like Shannon's park out there is the whale shark, and one of the cool things about them is they're actually really closely related to our nurse sharks here. And our nurse sharks, when they're full grown, will get to about maybe 10 feet, but the whale sharks can get up to about 5 times bigger than that. So even though they're in the same family, they're still very different sizes. But what's also very cool, and why everybody's saying, oh, well, the biggest sharks out there are the coolest. Well, sometimes our smallest sharks are so much cooler. We don't know much about them. So, like, one of the ones that Jillian mentioned was the Ninja Lantern shark. And those guys are pretty tiny. They can almost fit in the palm of your hand. It's really cool to see different sharks of different species across different sizes.
Cool, great questions. All right, so we're going to go to Mr. Uretsky's class. Do you have some questions for us?
Yeah, we do. Go ahead, ask your question.
How many new sharks have you found?
Okay.
Say that again, sorry.
Say again, repeat.
How many new types of sharks have you found?
I don't think here are any new species here. A lot of times the new species that are discovered come up actually dead in big trawling nets. So scientists will go out on big fishing boats and kind of look and check out these species that are coming up in these big nets that are dragged across the bottom of the ocean. And they'll see a new species and realize that, go look back and compare it to other species. So unfortunately, a lot of the newer ones, because they live so deep in the ocean, we'd have to be in a submarine or even beyond that to be able to actually see them in their world. So unfortunately, a lot of them come up dead, but it's another reason that we want to protect our oceans and keep studying is because there's so much out there we have yet to learn. We've kind of explored a very small percentage of the largest part of our planet. So there are new species being discovered all the time, which is really exciting, and it would be amazing if one was discovered here. So hopefully that would be really awesome.
Okay.
What species of shark is the most endangered?
Probably the one that we have here would be, and it's actually not a true shark. It's a sawfish. It's a small-toothed sawfish. It's sort of like, it's a flat shark. You took it and kind of smushed it. It has this giant saw on its face. So essentially the cousin to the shark. And the 5 species of sawfish, including the small tooth, are the most endangered marine fishes in the world. So that's probably here a species that we can rarely see and that are actually listed as critically endangered. Great question.
Okay, one more. One up.
What kind of sharks are most dangerous?
Most dangerous type of shark? Yeah. What's the most dangerous type of shark?
Yeah, so it's sometimes really difficult to say what's the most dangerous type of shark, because the important thing that we always have to remember is sharks don't want to eat human beings. Okay? One of the things when you guys see that happens, when people get bit by sharks, a lot of the times it's in murky water, and a lot of the time in murky water is a lot of little bait fish, so there's little tiny fish, and then you have the bigger fish that come in and eat the smaller fish, and then of course our sharks, you get to the sharks, and the sharks are in those areas, and they're just trying to go after the fish, but because they can't see very well in the water, and we're just out there trying to enjoy it, it's a complete accident. So it's really difficult for us to say, more sharks are more dangerous than others. It just happens to be where we are and what the shark's doing. Sometimes a lot of time we just get in the way. Now, for us, because we handle sharks all the time and we're so close to them, we do take our time in handling them. So really for us, any dangerous shark is anyone that we're trying to work up. But of course, we know what we're doing, and we're extremely careful with it. We don't play around with the sharks. We take absolutely everything we need from them, and then we release them. Because the longer we hold on to them, the more they're going to stress out, and the more likely we're going to get bit by them. So for us, any dangerous shark would be one we're actually trying to work with. Of course, we're very careful.
If you think about it, we can't explain to the shark what we're doing. It's trying to get away, it's trying to breathe, it's trying to not be in the situation because it doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't know that we're not going to eat it, we're not a big predator. So you really can't explain that. So the animal is trying to get away. And anytime you're trying to work with an animal that doesn't want to be there, that wants to get away, even if you take your dog or cat to the vet, they might have to have a muzzle on, or they might scratch or want to get away, because again, you can't really explain to them what's happening. So it really makes it tricky, but that's why it's important to practice the safe handling. Again, we mentioned keeping the animal safe and also keeping us safe. So everyone practices and makes sure that you're working as a team to do it very efficiently to minimize the stress on the animal and also get the data you need and get the animal released. Great question. All right, so do we have Mrs. Smuckle's class still with us? Okay. What about Mrs. Rosenstein's? Are you guys still with us? Nope. All right. Well, we'll go back through and we'll start again with Mrs. Grippentraub's class. We'll do 2 more questions from you.
Yes. Do you use solar tags?
No, we have some of the satellite tags that we use solar information to kind of get a better idea of where they are. So a lot of the satellite tags will use the time of day and then the intensity of light to look at things kind of. So as you change from east to west, like your sunrise and your sunset are always different, and so the internal clock on that can then take when the sun has started to come through the water column and determine when the sunrise was in that location. Now you can get an idea of how far east to west it was, and then based on the length of day, you know how far north to south you are, and that's how a lot of the tags are able to determine where they are in the ocean.
Great question. You guys have one more?
Different species of sharks talk to each other or help each other.
Can you say that again?
Do different species of sharks talk to each other or help each other hunt?
Robert. Some species, like dogfish, are called that because they actually will hunt in packs like dogs. Others, the lemon sharks here at the lab, a lot of the research that's been done has shown they have personalities, they have best friends, and they can actually learn from each other. So if a lemon shark learns a novel thing, like pushing a button to get a piece of bait or a piece of fish, if a new shark's put in with it, that shark is going to learn that much quicker than if it was just on its own. So they do have ways of working together and communicating. It's a lot of physical, just kind of if you think about if you saw a dog on the street and it was growling, that's very different than a dog wagging its tail. So there's kind of postures and physical kind of movements on the body that can display sort of a behavior, if you will. So it is very different than how we might, want to go play volleyball together. So it's very different than that, but they are able to communicate and work together. Great. All right. So we're going to go back to Mr. Uretsky's class for 2 final questions.
Miss Smuckle's class is on, by the way.
Oh, you are. You're back. Okay. Mrs. Smuckle's class, then, if you guys have a couple questions, that would be great.
Sure. You want to say hi?
Do sharks have whiskers like fish? If they do, what do the whiskers do?
Great question. So you guys may have not have joined us yet, but if we can lift out our nurse shark, I'm going to just quickly show you guys. Yes, some of our species have things that act like whiskers, so they pick up any movements or motions in the water. So our nurse shark here in particular, which we'll try to get him close. So if you guys look at his mouth, you see those 2 little things hanging down. Those are like whiskers. We don't call them whiskers, we call them barbels, but they do the exact same thing that whiskers do. And they just help them pick up any movement of water around them. And of course, they're right by their mouth, so that really helps them figure out where food might be. Okay? There's other sharks called the wobbegongs that have a whole bunch of different barbels and branches that come off of their face. That actually, one, help them look more like coral, so they sit there on the bottom and wait for anything to come by, and they'll blend in with the rest of the reef. And of course, once something hits one of them, they'll know it's time to eat. So they'll use it just to really help them find food a little bit better.
Great question. Do you guys have another one? We'll let you guys, if you guys want to do 5, so we'll do 4 more because we hadn't heard any questions from you.
Okay.
How long do sharks usually live?
How long do they usually live?
Yes.
So it really depends, and a lot of it we don't know. That's one of the problems with trying to conserve sharks is we're not positive on the actual how long they're living. So one of the papers that the researchers at the lab just did actually extended the maximum age for the lemon shark, and they think it's now around 37, at least 37 years old. But a lot of the deep sea sharks, they think can live up to 100 years old. So there's still a lot of research that we need to do to determine how long sharks are able to live, and that gives you a better idea of how fast they can recover from fisheries. So obviously, if they're able to live longer, that means that they might be able to reproduce more often.
Question.
What's your favorite kind of shark?
Mine's the great hammerhead. They're pretty amazing. They're a very big shark, and those eyes out on the side are just incredible to see and to be in the water with them. We're really lucky here in Bimini. They migrate through, and we're able to swim with them and interact with them and see them in very shallow, very clear water, which there aren't many places around the world that you can actually do that. So we're very lucky we have a special place where we can interact with them here. What's your favorite?
My favorite would probably be the tiger shark, but recently we've been catching, we caught a 6-gill shark, which lives down in like 1,000 feet of water. And so we caught one of those last week, and I think that's starting to become one of my favorite sharks just because you don't get to see it very often. And the last time the lab caught them was roughly 4 years ago, so they're very rare just because they're very deep.
It's hard for me to pick a favorite, but I actually really like the nurse sharks. I think that they are so beautiful, and I really find them fascinating.
My favorite species of sharks, one I've never worked with, but they're just awesome. And there's something called the thresher shark. If you guys aren't familiar with them, they're very, very just cool looking sharks. Some of them have big old eyes and tiny little mouth. The coolest thing about them is their caudal fin, so that last fin of theirs, it's so long, and what they'll do is they'll actually swim around a ball of fish to kind of corral them together, and then swim right in the middle of it, stop once they hit the middle of it, and they'll use their long tail just to come around and whip fish and kind of knock them unconscious, and of course the sharks can eat them a lot easier. First time I saw that, I thought that was just the coolest thing in the world. It easily became my favorite species. One day I hope to work with them. They're very cool, or at least see them.
How many sharks do you have?
What was that, sorry?
I mean, how many do they have?
How many baby sharks do you guys have?
Any year we catch probably around 500 to 600 baby sharks if you count all the different species. So next week we're going to start what's called our Big Pit Project, and that's where we go out and try to catch all the baby lemon sharks that are born in the mangrove area around Bimini. And I think normally we catch around 250 to 300 baby sharks in a matter of 12 nights. So that's quite a lot for that species. And we also catch a lot of these baby nurse sharks and a lot of baby tiger sharks too.
Okay, if you guys want to finish us off with one last final question.
One last question.
Have you ever got to hold a baby thresher shark?
I don't think any of us have. That would be incredible, just to even see a baby thresher shark. I don't even think I've seen.
So one thing with sharks that are like thresher sharks is that they live in the open ocean, and so a lot of people aren't even quite sure like where they're born. So that's part of the research that people are trying to determine is a lot of these sharks live in the open ocean. We don't know where they go to give birth. So then it's hard to really do any research on, trying to catch them when they're born, and then you'd be able to determine, where the most important habitat is to protect for them.
That's why that's one of the coolest things about here at Bimini is when we first got started, Doc, who founded the lab, would always see just the baby sharks and baby lemon sharks in particular. And he knew that that's the reason Bimini was so important, why he wanted to start a lot of his work out here. It's because he could find those guys, and they were perfect species to really, one, just discover all the new things about sharks, because when he got started, there wasn't much known about sharks at all. And two, when you can understand where these guys are being born, well, you have to have the adults that come through too. So you get to look at different life stages and ages of these guys, and you really get to understand some of the most important things about them.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Those were all really, really wonderful questions, and we appreciate everyone joining us today. If you want to learn more about the research being done here at the lab, you can check out www.biminisharklab.com and find them on the different social media outlets to see updates and news and all sorts of exciting things. You can also check out Sharks for Kids at www.sharksforkids.com for more activities and videos and things to kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into the world of these incredible animals. So thank you so much for joining us, and everyone, you guys have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.